Hi, this is Alex from Handmade Riot, and please excuse my voice. I have allergies at the moment, and I don't know that they are going to go away anytime soon. So this is just the voice you might be stuck with for this review. Today I'm going to review two interchangeable needle sets. They are both stainless steel. One is Hiya Hiya and the other is ChiaoGoo. Alongside the interchangeable needle set, I will show you some DPNs, both from Hiya Hiya as well as ChiaoGoo, and these 9-inch circular needles, and some Hiya Hiya fixed circulars as well. And last but not least, this sock knitting needle set from ChiaoGoo. So let's get started first with Hiya Hiya. So this might look a little bit different than what you're used to. Typically Hiya Hiya cases are a little bit more rectangular and they come in different colors. This one is supposed to be a special edition set. I'm saying that in quotations because generally speaking, I don't know that it comes with anything extra apart from the regular set, and so I'll go through everything that comes in here, but this set is a little bit more expensive, and I don't know that I love this case entirely. I love the color and I love the style. And by the way, if you order this online as opposed to your local yarn store or something like that, you do not get to choose the color of your case. Most retailers will just choose one at random and send it to you. I happen to really like this one, but I did think a lot about which kind of case I might chance getting and whether that was worth the investment, since this needle set is quite expensive to begin with. On the back, you can see there's a little zipper pouch, and I already took these out, but this is essentially where you get your accessories. So here we have the cables, 24-inch, 32-inch, 40, and then 16, and you can see that I have 24-inch pulled, and it's actually not in a project, it's just for this demonstration. So typically I keep the cables in their bags in this little pocket. Additionally, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this as well, but there is, and this all comes with the set, the little keys. First, there is the connector. So this connector is used to connect two cables together and make a longer cable, and then this little key is what's used to connect the needle to the cable. I know there's a bit of a reflection here, but hopefully you can see that fairly well. Now, this is the Hiya Hiya Sharp set. Hiya Hiya does also sell a stainless steel set, and apparently the needles are just not as sharp as the Sharp set, but they're still fairly sharp and maybe more comparable to the red lace ChiaoGoo, which I'll show in a minute. Let's go ahead and look inside. So, okay, all right, I promise you I did not do anything special to the set. Really, I just flipped the case over as you saw it. Before that, it was on a different table across the room. So these needles are already falling out, and I know you might be wondering, what is this? It's not a needle, but it does come with the set, and I'll talk about it in a second. So there is more of a cotton feel to the bottom portion of the case, and then the top is like something like a nylon, and you can see that a bunch of the needles have fallen out of their little slots, which is quite unfortunate. So let's talk about these slots. I'm actually not even going to try to put these back in some sort of order because they will just fall right back out. Recently, I took this case to my local yarn store, and again, it was one of those things where I closed it up, everything was in its place, put it in my bag, took it out at the yarn store, and ultimately a bunch of needles had fallen out, especially these little ones, through this little slot here once the case was closed. So they were in my backpack, but you know, that's fortunate, but they could have also easily fallen out without me noticing. Now, this first row of slots are for the needles, and they do have these sewn stitches alongside. Part of the problem, however, is that as you can see here in the first set of slots, you can actually fit up to 4 needles. Now, you might be thinking maybe that's the way that it was designed, for there to be 2 sets right next to each other. Except sometimes when you keep going up the sizes and you try to put the needles in their correct space, you end up with 3 needles. I don't know why. And then you end up with 1, and maybe some of the feedback for this might be, well, it's handmade. Okay, it might be handmade, however, I'd like for the needles to fit so that I don't want to either not use them or would want to ultimately get a different case, which is what I want to do with this set, or would think about. For the time being, I'm going to keep it because actually this is not even my primary needle set, and I'll tell you what I use them for in a little bit. There are pockets here. There's a deep pocket and there's one slim little pocket I'll show you with the needle. Now, the deep pocket really, I think, could fit some more cables, and then here you could fit some interchangeable needles as well. But also what I use them for are the fixed circulars. These are the fixed circulars that I started doing magic loop socks with, and just magic loop knitting in general, but for me it just happened to be socks. And I do like them. I actually like them better than the interchangeable set, and I'll say why. But as you can see, once you store them, in this case, once you get them out, this is what the cables look like, right? And I know that a lot of people say, well, you can put them in hot water to straighten out the cables. And you know, this set is not cheap. So if you're going to get it, or for myself, if I pay for something like this, I don't want to have to do extra work to make the needles or the cables work for me. They should work from the very beginning, kind of like other needle sets, which this is not one of them for me. I do like the fixed circulars. I would recommend them. The join is very smooth here, where the cable joins the needle, and I like that a lot, and they are pretty sharp. Not ideal for superwash, definitely can be a little bit more splitty, but I do like it for socks, although again, they are not my favorite. I will tell you about my favorite sock needles in just a little bit, but again, there is no join. The join does not catch on the yarn, I should say here, so the fixed circulars I can definitely recommend if you like the sharp tip and if this nylon cable does not bother you. Now, here's what I don't like about the interchangeable set. Here's a pair of needles that I've already put together, and here, where there's a join, I'll show you when I undo the needle from the cable. The needle itself here is not actually stainless steel. The part that joins the cable is not stainless steel. It's actually pretty rough to the touch, which I don't really like. And for example, compared to the ChiaoGoos, which are all stainless steel, I'm not sure what this is about. I don't know how it's going to hold up over time, and that does bother me. But it works fine, and actually when you put the needle into the cable, there is, generally speaking, no problem. There is no join here. I've never had it catch on the yarn if I've tightened the needle well enough, particularly using the key that I showed you earlier. However, here, because the cable allows the needle to swivel, right? And this is for those knitters who might be turning their needle a lot as they knit. Because the cable swivels or allows the needle to swivel, there is, the join here is not quite as smooth. And I've had yarn catch on it quite a bit. In fact, I'm working on these simple house slippers, and I'll go ahead and close this just to show you. But I'm working on these simple house slippers, really, you know, worsted weight yarn, not super wash. So there's really nothing to catch here. The yarn is not particularly splitty, but I was using the Hiya Hiya interchangeables, and it kept catching on the yarn and splitting the yarn as I was knitting, and I was starting to get irritated and not able to knit as fast, and so I switched to these ChiaoGoo DPNs, and I haven't had any problems, and I've just been able to speed along. This is the simple house slipper pattern. If anyone is interested, it's free on Ravelry. It's great. I've made many of these. And also this is a provisional cast on that I utilized. It's not in the pattern, but I would highly recommend it. All right, so that's really all I need to say about the needles. I like the sharpness, however, the swivel join, or where the cable is able to swivel, that does catch. I do not like that. I do like the fixed HiyaHiyas, so I do recommend those. However, I think that can be really expensive, and the whole point of getting an interchangeable set is to make it affordable and to allow you to have typically, you know, any kind of needle that you could possibly want. And the only other thing that I want to mention about this is that the size range goes from 2 to US 15 or 10 millimeter, and that's what this looks like. And there is engraving, or I guess it's lasered on the size, and I also don't love this. Some of it is very, very small and very difficult to read. This is a size 15. I'll show you what it looks like on this particular one. This is a size 4. I don't know how well you are able to see that, but it's not the cleanest sort of laser print, if you will. So overall, I'm glad I got this set. I wanted it for a long time. I'll show you what else comes with it, but ultimately it's not my go-to for a number of reasons. Now, there are these sort of metallic tubes, and you might be wondering what in the world are those, and I'll talk about those in a second. But before I do, this particular set, although it comes with although the smaller set of needles is supposed to go with a small cable, or a cable that uses a smaller fitting, and then the larger set of needles is supposed to have a different set of cables for a larger fitting, they actually, despite the price of the set and how expensive it is, what they did instead of including a second set of cables, which would have made it more versatile and able to work on more projects at a time, they included this adapter. So ultimately, all of the larger sizes need to utilize this adapter, which makes your needle longer. I don't mind that. That works for my knitting style, but I know that some people really prefer short tips, and so that would not really work for you because you have to use the needle tip, the adapter, and then the actual needle cable. And so just something to keep in mind. Now, I'm gonna go back and talk about these little metal tubes. These little metal tubes allow you to essentially make straight needles. So here they are. So here is one cute little panda, and this is the smaller version of the metal tube. And essentially what you do is you take the metal tube, you take the knitting needle, you put it onto the metal tube, and then you put your end stopper here. Now, these end stoppers work both to secure your work on the cable in case you want to take the needles off. You can use this end stopper, or you can use the end stopper here on this metal tube to make a straight needle. The only time I have used these is when I go to a yarn tasting and they give out little yarn samples, and then you want to be able to swatch right then and there. I've done that. It's pretty fun. I do like them for that, but that's about it. And it's a little bit gimmicky because I rarely use straight needles to knit. Typically I will use circulars to knit flat work, in the round, etc., as many people out there do. And so these are a bit pointless. They are fun. Again, I like to use them just to switch it up a little bit at things like yarn tastings, but ultimately I don't know that it's worth the set. The other thing that comes in this set are the following items. You get these little puppy snips. They're a little scissor. I rarely use these, I'll be honest with you. Even though I have them, I rarely bring them with me. I don't really love them, don't use them. They work fine, not a problem. They also come with these little grippies, and so what you do is you grab the needle and you grab the cable, and then you use them to twist the one onto the other so that you get a better grip. But again, you can use the little key that's provided in the set, so this is maybe a bit superfluous. Possibly works better with the smaller needles, but again, it's not super necessary. And then these are the end stoppers for the larger tubes. I'm calling them metal tubes, but essentially larger stoppers for the larger needles, so you can either make larger straight needles or put them on your work that uses the larger sizes so that you can use the needles for something else and keep your work on the cables. And also, I do really like these markers, these stitch markers. They're not unique to HiyaHiya, and so again, this is not something you would buy the set for, but they do come with maybe like 10 of these light bulb stitch markers, and they come in different colors. And I really was pretty shocked by how few you get, again, because the set is so expensive, and again, ultimately, I'm not sure it's worth it. Now, that is really the ultimate, that is really all the information that I need to give you about this set. That's all that comes with it. You get these accessories, you get the capacity to make the straight needles, and then you get the actual interchangeable needle set, and that's it. When these first came out in the US, the price was around $160, and that was quite a bit of money. I mean, it is so much, and I believe in investing in interchangeable needle sets if you can help it, particularly since they allow you to knit pretty much anything and everything you could possibly want. And so if you're able to invest, it is a one-time investment, and then you can just leave it at that. And so to me, it is worth it to save up the money. However, for this particular set, I would not buy it again. If I had known everything that I know now about the set in terms of the little bumps on the cables and those bumps catching on my yarn, and then ultimately the fact that this case is not that great and I kind of don't really want to carry it around. I mean, really my favorite part is the capacity to do something gimmicky like make these straight needles. So ultimately it was probably not worth the price. I use them as my secondary set if I'm going somewhere where I'm afraid of my needles getting lost, or whatever the case might be. I will bring these because I don't care about them as much as my other set that I will review right now for you, which is the ChiaoGoo set, and I'll talk about why I love it so much more and think it's a better deal than the HiyaHiya set. And again, it's okay if we don't agree on both of them. If ChiaoGoo didn't exist, these would probably be my favorite, I'll be totally honest, but ChiaoGoo does exist and it's more affordable, so. And one more thing before I forget, I want to show you these HiyaHiya DPNs, double pointed needles. These are also sharps. So the only reason why I have these HiyaHiya Sharp DPNs is because I was working on a sweater project and I needed a size US 2.5 3mm needles, and I was going to a Fiber Fest and they just happened to have these there. They are really sharp. I was using Quince & Co. Chickadee working on a sweater, and I don't think that that's a particularly splitty yarn, or I did not have any issues while I was doing stranded color work with it using magic loop or just regular circular needles. But then finally when I started using these DPNs, it started getting splitty. I don't know, I'm glad I have this size, I'm glad I tried them out, so there's no mystery in it for me, but they're quite sharp. Just be ready, basically. I really want to talk about my favorite set, which is the ChiaoGoo set. First, we'll start with the complete set. This is the red lace, and I guess ChiaoGoo makes these and bamboo ones, and that's about it. I don't know that they have two different stainless steel styles, not as far as I know. Certainly my local yarn store carries ChiaoGoo, and I've never seen any difference in any of the sets. So it's either the red lace, which are the stainless steel interchangeables, or fixed circulars, which is what this is with the red stripe, or you can get the bamboo ones, which have a different color stripe on the case. Now, I could gush so much about all of this. Namely, I love the case. So the case has a front zipper, which allows you to keep things inside. For me, I have my cables in here. Actually, there's another baggie. Now, all of these cables do not come with the ChiaoGoo set, but there you get more cables with the ChiaoGoo set than you do the HiyaHiya set. I will explain in just a little bit. And then I'll talk about the other cable options that don't come with the set but that you could buy independently. So there's that zipper. Then there's a zipper that goes all the way around, but I've already unzipped it, and here it is. Now, I'm gonna tilt these. You can see nothing's falling out, okay? Even the heavy, I'm shaking it pretty well here, and even the heavier needles are not falling out. They just stay put. And I love that about this case. It's so good. That is what I love about the set. The needles do not fall out. That's funny because it looks like this one is falling out, but it's actually not. This pocket is not as shallow, not as deep as the other ones. It's a bit shallow. So let's talk about what comes in here. So first, if you get the complete set, you get the size 2 to size 8, which matters in terms of which cables you're going to use with them. What I love about it is that not only does this case have the sizes labeled so that you can always put them in their back in the right place, but the size little pockets for the needles were made for the size that fits in them, right? So these pockets are smaller than these little pockets, right? So the size 15 fits just the 15. That's great design. I don't understand why the HiyaHiya do not do that. So in the front, you also have more pockets to add additional needles, which you can see that I've done. So one thing that does not come in either the HiyaHiya set or the ChiaoGoo set that you have to buy separately, but is more common in Europe, is a US size 2, which is a 3 millimeter. And so I have that here, just in between the 2 and the 3. Ideal. And then the set here that I have are the 5-inch tips. I prefer the 5-inch tips, but you can also get the 4-inch tips. I actually lost a project with a pair of needles. It was very sad. I talked about it for a long time. But point being is that I needed to repurchase the size 7s for a project, but my local yarn store, which does carry ChiaoGoo, only carries the 4-inch tips, which is how I ended up with these. I gave them a try. I didn't really like them. I ultimately ended up getting the 5-inch pair, so now I have both, and then sometimes I loan this pair out for particularly for people that I'm teaching how to knit or something like that. Here are the size 4-inch tips and the size 5, just for comparison, and these are both US size 7. The sizing, there it is. So the sizing is engraved. You have both the US size followed by the millimeter, and these I really like. I think that they are very legible and spaced out, and you can see what you're looking at any one time. And notice, right, that the tip or the screw-on piece that goes into the actual cable is stainless steel, and it does not feel rough to the hand. I mean, it feels like a screw-on tip, but I don't feel like it's roughing up my hands or anything like that, and I really, really, really like that a lot. I'll show you a pair that I'm using for a shawl at the moment, and here is what it looks like when it's put together. And I love this because everything is smooth. This piece is smooth, the needle to cable connection is smooth, everything is smooth, and you still have the little hole to use your T-pin with, or your little key in order to be able to tighten the needle onto the cable, and I love these so much. And of course, I'll talk a bit about the cables. ChiaoGoo is famous for its red lace cable, which is essentially a nylon coated stainless steel. I'll show you a bit about those in just a second, but also you can see for this project I'm using those HiyaHiya bulb stitch markers. It's about the only thing that set is good for, let me tell you. Now, let's flip this around. The larger set of needles comes with size 9 to size 15, and you do need different size cables for this. And unlike the HiyaHiya set, ChiaoGoo in their complete set includes both. So I will show you that in just a second. So here I'm going to pull out a random small size of the cable, and then also the large size of the cable as well. None of them want to come out, of course. All right, here we go. So you can see that the fittings, this is the small right here, and then this is the large, and you can see that there is a difference in size, and with ChiaoGoo you get both sets if you order the complete set. You can just buy the large or the small, and you can do that with HiyaHiya as well. With ChiaoGoo, if you buy the large or the small, you will get this exact same case. You will just get either these needles or these needles, but the case will still be labeled for all sizes, so if you want to buy more, you can do that in case you just happen to use the smaller sizes and not so much the large, but you need, you know, just that one time you need size 11 and you decide to get it. So I do like that. With the HiyaHiya, if you buy the complete set, you are able to opt for that roll case. If you want to buy the small or the large set, I do believe they only come in the square case, which you might actually prefer. Maybe the needles don't fall out of those as easily as they do the roll. So just something to think about. Okay, so small set, large set, this is the complete. You get both the small and large cables. Both the small and the large cables come in the 14, 22, and 30 inch. So if you are using the 4-inch tips, I do believe that that is the circumference that they make. And then if you use the 5-inch tips, they actually make 2 inches larger of a circumference. So the 14-inch would actually be a 16, etc. So here it'll tell you that it's a large. I don't know how well you can see that. And on the other side, it'll tell you that it is a 30-inch cable, right? 30-inch cable or 75 centimeters. Very nice. Again, I pulled these out of the bag, as you saw, and the cable is not at all wrinkled up. It, opens up nicely, and you're able to just put the needles on and cast on, and there's no unwinding of the cable. There's nothing scrunched up. And I love that, and most people love that about ChiaoGoo. Now, one of the critiques that I hear about ChiaoGoo is that the needles are the cables are too thick to do magic loop with. One, I don't think that's true. I've knit with magic loop with these, but my suggestion to you originally would have been to use the clear cable that comes with the bamboo set for magic loop. However, and I do have one of those. However, I now have changed my mind and I have something far better, and I want to show you that next. And before I get into that, I'll just move this set to the side really quickly and just mention, as I showed you before, the ChiaoGoo also have the DPNs. They're great, they're well labeled. They're not as sharp as the HiyaHiya Sharp, but they're pretty daggone sharp, and I really like them a lot. And I'll show you them side by side. The HiyaHiya needle is this one. So that is the sharpness, and the ChiaoGoo is this one here. Yeah, so you can see the HiyaHiya, which is this one, is sharper, but again, I don't find that to be an advantage. And in fact, sometimes I think it makes the yarn pretty splitty. So the other things that come with the complete ChiaoGoo set are these items here, which I'll talk about in a second. But first I want to say you can buy these little ChiaoGoo grippies if you want to. They come in the HiyaHiya set. They do not come in the ChiaoGoo set. I don't find that they're necessary. I've never had trouble tightening the cables on either set really to the needle without these grippies. But if you want them, you can buy them separately. I think they're around $2 in the US. Anyway, that's just something to know. And they look fairly similar to the HiyaHiya ones. These are a little bit chalky. I'm not exactly sure why, but the ChiaoGoo ones exist. Now, what does come with the set, just like with the large set of cables and the small set of cables, you also get the cable stoppers. I really like these cable stoppers quite a lot. At the time of this filming, you're not able to build straight needles out of the ChiaoGoo set, but these are the cable stoppers you would use for the cables if you wanted to take the needles off, secure your work, or be able to use the needles for something else. These are great. They're maybe plasticky, but feel almost ceramic, although I'm sure that they're fairly cheap plastic. I really like these a lot. In fact, I bought more of the white ones to use on sleeve projects because I tend to secure the sleeves on shorter cables anyway, and then just use this instead of a stitch holder or something like that. The other thing that comes with the ChiaoGoo set are these fun stitch markers, and I do like these a lot. I used to use these exclusively, but the thing is, obviously, you can't mark the front or back of your work with these, and also you can't take them off whenever you want, and that's really the only drawback. But they are really nice. They're pleasant to the touch. They're very smooth. They come in great colors. Obviously, the sizes are color coded, which is very nice. Now, if you order just the small set or just the large set, in the small set you get the pink and the yellow, and in the large set you get the blue and the green. But either way, they're really nice. I like them a lot. I bought them for other people as gifts. just the stitch markers because I did like them quite a bit. Although at this point I really do prefer and find more uses for the bulb style or the clothespin style. Is it called a closing pin? Y'all know what I'm saying. All right. Safety pin, that's the word. All right. So the last thing to really talk about are these 9-inch circulars. Now, to be fair, I have not used other 9-inch circulars, so this review for them is not really that fair per se. I've certainly not tried the HiyaHiya ones. 9-inch circular knitting is not really my thing. I did want to give it a try. These are a size 0. I tend to knit all my socks in size 0. I will show you my preferred and ultimately favorite sock needles. These are not them, but I did try this and use them on a project, and it took me about 2 inches or inch worth of work on one sock in order to really get the groove or the hang of this. Part of the problem is that these needles are short, right? And that's true for all 9-inch circulars. And the way that I knit is continental style, so I have my pointer fingers suspended, and so that ultimately means that I'm both holding the needles with the rest of my hand, so my middle finger and my thumb, and then I'm also guiding the yarn with the way that I knit with my middle finger, and that's just a lot in terms of being able to brace the work. So I found that my tension was different, and I had to really concentrate until I could train my hands to be able to use these well. I don't think that's unique to ChiaoGoo. As far as 9-inch circular needles go, I really do like these a lot. Again, the join is smooth. I like the tips. They're not too sharp. They're not too dull. Overall, I enjoyed them. I will probably use these again, but I probably will not buy another pair of 9-inch circular needles just because it's not my jam. I prefer longer needles as it is. Now, what some of you might really be waiting for is the review for this item, which is the ChiaoGoo sock set. It's not zipped up here, but the ChiaoGoo small needle set, or they're called the ChiaoGoo minis, is really meant for socks or something that uses a very fine gauge, right? So size 000 to, I believe this is 1.5. We'll go in and look at all the needles and I'll be able to tell you more detail and be sure. But it comes in this mesh case, and this is not necessarily the cheapest set. I would say, especially when you compare this to the complete set, this is definitely on the pricier side. It retails in the US for around $85. I got these from my local yarn store. I was happy to be able to support them, but that was, you know, at a time that I could afford something like that, and I'd been saving up for it, and I got a deal, right, that I think won't necessarily be available for many other folks. I was able to help out at the local yarn shop, and so was able to get these for a bit cheaper. But either way, I was planning on getting them at some point. Now, it comes in a mesh case, and at first I wasn't sure if I would like this, but as is the case with everything with ChiaoGoo, I really ended up liking it. It's not flimsy. I don't feel like it's going to tear. It feels pretty sturdy, and it has this front pocket in which you get this little case, and I'll show you what comes in the case. So, and it was open, which I did not realize. I'll show you this little T-pin in a second. And so that's the front zipper pouch. So let's see what comes in the case. First, you get this little T-pin. This is a mini one compared to what you might be used to seeing. And it has this little pop-up closure. You get the mini T-pin. You get one of the ChiaoGoo rubber grippies. This one happens to be upside down, but you do get one of them. Again, I still don't use them even with these small needles. I don't find that it's necessary, but it's certainly helpful to have it if you want to use it. And then you get another T-pin, those small stitch markers that we just saw in the complete set, and then you get the small stoppers. And then, and I really don't know if you will be able to see this, is this tiny, 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 tiny needle connector. How many times can I say tiny? Do you see it? And so this is for you to be able to make a larger cable. And I'll try to separate these items in here so you can see them even more. Basically, it looks the same as the larger needle connectors in ChiaoGoo, which are quite small anyway, and I really do like that. But I really recommend that you not take them out of this bag, just so that you don't end up losing them. 2 of them come in here, which is very nice. Again, I feel like ChiaoGoo does a great job of giving you enough items to where you have everything you need. You don't really need to buy additional anything in order to make their sets work. And then what you get in the rest of the set in the second pocket is the following. First you get this. This is the little case for the needles. So you have 000, 1.5 millimeter to 1.5 US, which is 2.25 millimeter. Now I will show you how these are marked on the actual needles in just a little bit. You also, so you actually don't get this item, but remember earlier I was saying if you don't like magic looping with the regular ChiaoGoo cables, I've got a trick for you. This is it. I actually highly recommend that you get the mini cable set, and then you get this adapter, which is an interchangeable adapter tipped to mini, small tip to mini cable. And essentially what this allows you to do is put these on the small set of ChiaoGoo needles, so this is size 2 to US size 8, and then use these with the mini cables, which are such a dream and buttery smooth, and I honestly would not recommend anything else apart from this. And I'll actually show you in just a little bit the bamboo option, or the a nylon cord option that comes with the bamboo ChiaoGoo needles. That's also an option for magic loop, but in any case my primary recommendation would be to use the mini cables, which I'll show you in a second, and then these adapters that go from the small tip to the mini cable tip. And again, this does not come with this set, but I bought it and it was fairly cheap. It was maybe like $2.50, and that's really great. You get a needle gauge. Actually, I forgot to say, with the complete set, you also get this needle gauge. I like it a lot. It's actually in one of my knitting bags. That's why I forgot to put it back in here. But this is probably the only thing in this set that's made in the US. I believe the rest of it is made in China. It is a Chinese company. So here we are. You get the needle gauge. Straightforward. Now, you get the little mini set, and actually this you do not get either, but I'll talk about in a second. So this little mini set are the dreamiest cables you've ever seen, and this is size 14, 22, and 30. And this is the same type of cable as the complete set, just thinner. I mean, look at that, right? They do not coil, they do not bunch up, you do not get kinks in them, although you can really bend these quite a bit, meaning near the tip, if you really try, you can put a bit of a bend in the cable, although why would you do that? They're so great. So these are, again, nylon coated stainless steel, I believe, and so they're just dreamy. They're buttery, they're smooth, they're quite thin, as in they're the mini cables, and so if you want a magic loop with them, you really, really can. I mean, they're pretty great. And I'll show you compared to, say, let me get out those HiyaHiya. So you can see these are HiyaHiya size 1s. Well, it doesn't actually matter what size these needles are, but you can see the cable on the small needles, and then you can see that this cable is actually thicker than the mini ChiaoGoo cables, which again, if you're trying to magic loop, this is really the way to go. So these are the cables that come with the set. I additionally also bought this one particular cable size. This is the mini cable again, and this is 37 inches or 93 centimeters. Again, this is really great for magic looping, and I got this particularly for sweaters. So let's say I was working on a piece of a sweater that was in fingering weight, this cable would be very, very dreamy. If it was something like worsted or heavier, I would just go for the regular ChiaoGoo cables without any trouble. So that is that. I love these. I use size 0 for my sock knitting, and so that is why these are missing, because they're actually in my sock project. I love them very much. I magic loop with them. I knit one at a time, socks if that matters to you, but there we are. Okay, so the 1.5 millimeter needles, just like the other ChiaoGoos, have the sizes marked pretty well. You can see them on here. However, once you get down to 00s, because the needles are so thin, they are not able to print the size. So what you get is these double dots on the needle. And the double dots let you know that it is a 00. And then again, on the 000, you have these little dots, which let you know that it is a 000. Now, although these pieces here that connect to the cable are made of stainless steel, I do find that they are bendable. So that's just something to note. Now, I don't think that these needles are easily bendable by any means, but when you're screwing them into the cable, it's just something to keep in mind. You don't want to be too rough with it because it could impact the cable or the bend in the needle. And I'll just show you what they look like when they're connected. Pretty straightforward. And again, there is really no join that you can feel here. I mean, it is so incredibly smooth, this needle and the join. So both where the needle connects to the cable and both when the cable metal tip connects to the nylon piece. It's really wonderful and I recommend it a lot. And here are the socks that I am knitting at the moment. And I'm just using the size 0, which is so great and my favorite. And these do have the size printed on them. Although it's kind of funny because you can see the 1 dot on there, but it does tell you that they're 2mm and it says ChiaoGoo on there. So that is the size 0. I highly, highly, highly recommend this set. If you're a sock knitter, if you do magic loop, if you are not a sock knitter, but you would like to use the mini cables, I highly recommend them. Just in general, this set was so worth it. I'm so glad I was able to get a good deal on them, but either way, as I said, as soon as I tried them, I knew that I would get them eventually whenever that was possible for me. So that's really it. I mean, I think you can tell by how many ChiaoGoo items I have that I'm pretty devoted to ChiaoGoo for no particular reason other than I tried those items and I like them. I've knit everything from sweaters, slippers, to scarves, to shawls, to socks, to hats, to anything you could possibly think of knitting. I've knit both in the ChiaoGoo and the HiyaHiya, and I just happen to really like the ChiaoGoo. They're fuss-free, there's no catching of the yarn, regardless of the weight of the yarn, and ultimately they are cheaper. Everything in the range happens to be cheaper than the HiyaHiya. My needles are far more secure in something like this or something like this than they are in the HiyaHiya, and as you saw where the needles were just falling out and it wasn't very nice. Now I do know, and I do want to mention that a similar type of case is offered for the ChiaoGoo DPNs. I don't have that. I don't necessarily need it for how I store my DPNs, but you might want to look into that as well if that is something that interests you. And last but not least, I do just want to talk about the cable that is included with the bamboo set. And I have it here on a project, and before the mini sock set came out, I got this cable to try it out. And I thought I might really like this for magic looping, and I just wanted to compare it to the red lace cable. Now, this is the this is the cable that comes with this spin needle, which is the bamboo needle set from ChiaoGoo, the interchangeable set. And you can see that it's a clear nylon. Well, can you see? It's a clear nylon. And much like the HiyaHiya, these spin. So this cable allows your needle to spin. And so again, if you like that, that's an option. If you like the flexibility of the HiyaHiya, again, you can do that with this. So to me, if you're not magic looping all the time, then you might consider this cable in addition to supplement your ChiaGoo regular set rather than going for the HiyaHiya, because I think something like this can be really helpful. Again, my personal recommendation is for the mini cables, but again, you might not like that. If you're able to try these out, give them a little feel. They feel pretty good. You can see that these have been scrunched in a project bag. I actually abandoned this hat. I should come back to it, huh? So this is actually my only abandoned project, which makes me feel pretty proud, so I'm not too worried about it. But this was scrunched in a project bag, and I'm actually just keeping this hat on here until I come back to it. And it's because I stopped using this cable once I got the mini set, so it's kind of holding stitches on there. But yeah, it's a good one. I like it. It spins. It does all the things that HiyaHiya does. The the yarn does not catch here, unlike on the HiyaHiya. Again, maybe that's just the product that I happen to get and it just happens to work better, and y'all are gonna think this is a paid advertisement, and I promise you it's not. But ultimately, this is where I've been investing my money for when I go for knitting notions and tools and things like that. So that's everything that I have for you today. So hopefully you found that interesting. Please let me know what you think about both the HiyaHiya or the ChiaoGoo set. Obviously I have both. I do use both. I prefer one over the other. If one of them didn't exist, I definitely would go for the HiyaHiya. If you're able to try them in person, I think that's definitely the way to go. And until next time, take care, keep knitting.